Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here, Tom. Someone I've known for a long time, and I respect your knowledge. Today, if people bother to listen to the whole podcast, what knowledge are they going to get out of you?
I want people to understand community more, the power of it, how it works, and I'm someone who doesn't really like vague generalisms. So we can touch on the high-level stuff, but I really like getting practical. So for people that are interested in community, how did they launch one? How did they build one? How did they leverage it within their business or their life? So, I want to get tactical today.
So community is such a powerful thing. That's why I'm so excited about having you here to teach people about this. But I think also it's not a new word. You know, community as a word has been thrown around for a long time. I mean, all sorts of examples of it being abused as well. But how do you frame what a community is? What do you mean when you say community?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because you ask 10 people and you get 10 different definitions. I think community is connection, really, at its purest form. And you're right, it's been around forever. This is not a new thing. It's not even a digital thing. I think as humans, we innately crave connection and being part of a tribe or community. So it's been around forever, but I think what changes is the vessels in which community lives. So now you can build community remotely with people all over the world. You can mobilize people in incredible ways. And as you're doing with HelpBnk, you can really scale this idea of community. But for me, I think the simplest way of looking at community is it a place or this idea where you are bringing people together and helping them connect? And I'm sure you've heard the expression, 2 heads are better than one. Mm-hmm. For me, it's many heads are better than one. So this is not like a one-person show. It's about how do you actually connect different individuals for a purpose. And this could range from something really silly and trivial to something that changes the world. And I'll give you a couple of examples just to show how broad the spectrum can be. So I've become friends with David Spinks, who's a bit of an OG in the community world, and I really respect a lot of his knowledge. And he really loves kind of very niche, weird communities. So there is an online community where the members pretend to be part of an ant colony. And so every member is acting like an ant and communicating like an ant. And it's like the silliest thing ever. Or there's another community he showed me where people get together in person who are called Ryan. And it's just like hundreds of Ryans who that's the only thing they have in common. And they're there being like, screw Brian, because the whole thing is people keep calling them Brian. So those are like some very silly, ridiculous examples of community. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have communities that are there for social change. You have vast communities that will change lives or help people in need and so on. And again, I think what you guys are doing is incredible. That's an example of mobilizing a community to pay it forward and to do good. And there's a lot of gray area between. And I think that's why you can't give a one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to community. It could be that you run a little coaching group or a membership site as a business. You could have a free community. It could be fun. It could be silly. It could be, heartfelt. There's a massive range. So I think for people looking to start a community, it's like, well, what kind of community do they want to do? It's not one-size-fits-all.
One of the important things about this podcast, we don't have to agree. I actually think that's quite important. If we've got a difference of opinion, I like to discuss it and get to the details of it. I recently did a post that went viral about how I don't like football. I think I'm the only person in England who doesn't like football.
I'm not a massive fan either.
Right, yeah. I feel like slowly I should maybe make a community of people that the anti-fans. But I think the reason I don't like it is I grew up in England when I was younger. It was all everyone ever talked about. It was very much like, what team are you on?
The default, right?
The default, yeah. And if you weren't part of a team, you almost couldn't be friends with certain people, and there was a lot of division. And I'd like to discuss the division in community, and in a moment I'd like to get into that. We have a staircase. At the bottom of that staircase, there's a doorbell. People can go there anytime, day or night, pitch their dream to that doorbell, and we upload it to 4 million people so people's dream can come alive. People also post their dreams to us. So this is just in the last few weeks, all the letters are here. I've got a few hundred here. Amazing. But we picked this one to open up a bit later. And I'd like your help to figure out how community could help this person's dream happen. Okay. So a little bit of a challenge for you, which we'll do towards the end of the podcast, right?
Yep.
Now, before I get into my kind of divisive part of community, I wanted to ask you, who's doing community right and who's doing it wrong, and examples of why you think they've done it right and why you think they've done it wrong?
I think we have to define right and wrong. So, what is right, and it could be that it just meets the goals. So there are some communities that I really don't agree with, but for the people running it and the people involved, they're loving it, right? So an example is you get communities of trolls or hackers. And I actually discovered one of these years ago because we were targeted by them one day. We traced it back to this community, and inside they were all having a great laugh. They're like, we're going to try and bring down this business today. And they had all the hallmarks of a successful community, right? They had their own internal language and all these bonds, and they were there for a common purpose. But it was despicable what they were doing. So is that a successful community? For them it was. For everyone else, not so much. But I think there are companies doing it the right way and individuals doing it the right way. When I wrote my book, The Community Manual, I talked to a lot of top businesses and people in the community space. And one of them was Noel Mack, who's Chief Brand Officer at Gymshark. And he kind of unpacked how Gymshark are building community. Because I'm sure you're familiar with the brand. I'm
a big fan. I interviewed Ben Francis not so long ago. I absolutely love what they've done with community. Yep.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? And it's at the heart of what they do. And Noel gave me some really interesting examples of how they're actually doing that tactically. So one time they had a billboard that they were getting in Times Square. And what would every other company do? They would just stick their logo up there and be like, here's a coupon, or, go to our sale. It would be very me. But community is all about making it we, not me. So instead, they posted on their social media and said, we've got this billboard and we don't want to use it. We want to give it up to one of our community. And so the top voted tweet below will get that spot. And this tweet just went crazy viral. It got something ridiculous, like 1 billion impressions or something. And people loved it. They were upvoting each other. And then, sure enough, one of the community won, and they got that coveted spot on the billboard. But just by involving their fans and involving their people and taking that spotlight and putting it on them instead of on themselves, I think is so genius. And you see this kind of permeate through Gymshark's culture, right? Yeah, you have the online, big scalable following, but you have the pop-ups for the core fans, you have the in-person experiences.
Yeah, so it's an important lesson for people. Very rarely will you see a picture of their clothing.
Yeah,
they're talking about people and what they're doing who happen to be wearing their clothing, which I think is something people miss. A lot of people in our community, when they're trying to promote their products or services, they literally just, here's my product, buy it. And they're not putting that, like you say, that giving it back to making it we, the community piece. I think that I love practical examples like that. Any others you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, tons, to be honest. Do you want like big scalable or do you want smaller?
Your favourite? I mean, I love the Gymshark story. I actually heard that from Noel direct as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
I love that story. Okay. But is there any other examples that spring to mind of how people have managed to make it, we, not me?
I mean, I'll give you an example that I did because I always want to make this accessible to people as well. Maybe they haven't got a billboard in Times Square.
Exactly, yeah, so a practical one.
Yeah, maybe you've got like a growing following on social media. And something that I started doing when my Instagram was really growing was make them smile Monday. And I thought, well, I've got all this engagement and this growing following. What can I do with it that feels good? So I basically said to everyone, here is one of my core community, and I appreciate them so much. Let's make their day. And I post this all over my stories and so on. And at the time, I was really supporting artists and creatives quite a lot. So I'd point to a piece they'd done, and I say, everyone, go flood this with kindness and, good vibes, and basically support them. And often the person would be asleep and they wake up the next morning and they were used to getting 1 comment on their post, 0 comments on their post. And they had hundreds. They would wake up to hundreds of people following them. Beautiful, and being like, I love this, you're so talented. And it would literally make their day. And often they didn't know where it had come from.
I might steal that, by the way.
Yeah, please. And,
I really love it. I think it's a beautiful example.
That's how you can mobilize people, right?
Totally. Yeah. So good. I mean, it's not even in that very down to earth practical example. It's not an expensive thing either, like you say. It's not a billboard in Times Square. It is literally something anyone could do. Yeah. And actually, your example there, I think when I started doing social media 4 years ago, the first year was, I think I did like everybody else, talking heads, right? Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Simon Squibb. This is how you raise money. Hi, I'm Simon Squibb. This is how you build a brand. And it was fine. But I think what really took off on my social media was when I started putting other people on there and showing their story and helping them, still giving the same knowledge that I wanted to give, but through the person who we were helping. Mm-hmm. And I since that changed, so it's kind of a similar example, like not about getting attention from me, which I actually never wanted anyway, but getting the attention on the person you're trying to help. It's so powerful.
I think it's something even deeper than that. And I've heard this from a few wise people in my network recently, that when it comes to personal branding, it's not that you're shining a light on yourself, you're shining it on an idea. And I think what you're really attracting attention around now is this pay it forward, helping others concept. That's what you're shining a light on. And it just so happens that in doing so, you feature other people that you're helping. But I think that idea is so powerful. That's where, again, you can really mobilize a community around something like that.
I mean, business models are interesting, and I'd love to talk about your process from where you started to where you are today. You've been very open, by the way, on your social media about how you've struggled to do posting sometimes. It's not your favourite thing to post every day.
Sure.
And how social media can actually drain you. I'd like to talk a bit about that as well, and community, because I think community can also be a drain, right? You've got to set infrastructure up to protect yourself. I mean, fill your own bucket first.
Yeah.
Before we get into, I guess, some of that emotional stuff, I guess I wanted to understand, how you came about understanding community. Where did it all start for you? Why has community become such a big part of your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've never had a traditional job, really. I've just started building cool stuff online for enjoyment from age about 12 with my best mate at the time. And so we try all these random different little projects and launch websites and so on. And then when I was about 15, this is super nerdy, by the way, but my favorite...
Warning up, should we? A little warning, super nerdy.
But yeah, being the badass, cool 15-year-old that I was a huge fan of the band Interpol back in the day. And so I started a fan site just as another little creative project. And it had like a blog and news and so on. And then I launched a forum. So it was like a fan forum. And I noticed their official forum, whilst it was quite busy, it didn't have the friendliest vibe, and not everyone seemed to fit in there. And then they started migrating over to mine. And it ended up actually getting more popular than the band's official forum. I think it got something like 250,000 posts. And people were spending their lives on there. And so, I get home from school, and I'd be geeking out with these people in real time, and we'd all be chatting about music and that kind of stuff. And it really kind of took off. You had people flying internationally to start romantic relationships because they met in the forum and making lifelong friends and all this kind of stuff. And I think that really opened my eyes to like, oh, wow, like this is fun. This community thing seems interesting. And from there, I just started to kind of weave it into future projects and be like, that's clearly something I enjoy. Somewhere along the way, internet marketers came across my path and started yelling at me that, well, actually that stuff doesn't matter. You're not going to make any money. And it's all about traffic. And I'm sure you remember this back in the day. This is pre-social media. So now it's about followers. Back in the day, it was like, you need to get traffic. You need to drive traffic to your website. And I started kind of absorbing what they taught. So I did all the traffic hacking strategies and whatnot, and started a blog. That really took off. And that got 15 million visitors. And it was kind of teaching design and that kind of thing. And I remember saying to my mates, I've made it. I've got this really popular blog. I've got all these readers. It feels amazing. Until I realized it wasn't. It was really hollow because the time on site was pathetic. There was no real community. People didn't care. I was just driving traffic in all the wrong ways. And when that dawned on me, it was kind of crushing. I was like, what's the point? What is the point of this? It's really unfulfilling, and everything I've been taught is wrong. So eventually, when it came to starting my now company, which I've run for a decade, I had one goal, which was I want to build the most engaged community I've ever seen online. Didn't have a business plan, didn't even have revenue goals. I just said, I don't want this hollow, empty vessel. I want something with meaning. And so when we launched, I acted in a very different way. I wasn't using all these traffic hacks and all that kind of stuff. I just made best friends with our first 200 customers. Like deeply, deeply connected with them to the point I would get a support ticket. I'd help them with their query and then see in the footer, they had a link to their design portfolio. And I'd reach out and be like, hey man, I just checked out your portfolio and on page 4, I love this piece. And we got in a conversation and we genuinely built a relationship. Super unscalable. It's a whole other story. I worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year and a half and hospitalized myself and burnt out horrendously. So I'm quite like anti-hustle now. But I love that process so much because I love people. So we got this really, really close-knit early stage community on the back of those relationships, and they would then tell their friends and so on. And that combined with a great product market fit, it just took off like a rocket. So we kind of went 0 to 7 figures very quickly, totally bootstrapped. And we also had some of the craziest numbers I've ever seen. So I wasn't doing this for the money, truly. I was doing it because I loved it and it was the most fun project ever. But ironically, the money then followed and the business success followed. And everyone talks about all these funnels and things of that nature, right? So normally it's like you might get 100 people in and convert 1%. You convert one of them. And that felt really counterintuitive to me. I'm like, well, it's really inefficient. Why would I neglect 99% of them and just try and get that one little person converted at the end? I was like, why don't I just start with the 1%? And I'm sure you've seen Kevin Kelly talks about 1,000 true fans.
Yep.
It was very much like that stuff was front of mind for me. So I was like, I just want to make 1,000 best friends. I just want to build real relationships. And we had that kind of white hot core as a result. And some of the numbers were crazy. So our list conversion was not 1%. It was 212. As in, for every person on our email list, the average person had bought more than 2 things. And that's when we had like 40,000 people. And I was looking at these numbers being like, I've never seen anything like this. It's nuts. But it just came from that early community first.
Real engagement.
Like crazy engagement.
This, by the way, I mean, this translates into social media following. So 4 years ago when I started on my journey of social media, so many people would DM me and say, we can get you 100,000 followers, we could get you 200,000 followers, get the image you deserve, sort of thing. I resisted all of it. And it was quite tempting in the early days because everyone wants a following, right? When you've only got 5,000 followers or 6,000 followers, you're like, come on, I want more. I've got knowledge here. I've done the video. Why not more people watching it? I always resisted it. And what happened, and to your point, is like, it takes a bit longer. But now the engagement on my social media is through the roof. Yeah. Like people are commenting. You can always tell, by the way, if someone's paid for reach because you just go on their video. It might have 1 million views. It's got 6 comments, right, and 7 likes, right. So I think basically the engagement is so much more. It's better to have 10 people that are really engaged than it is to have 1 million that don't care.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's something I think community-wise, I mean, I don't know the rule book on it, but my feeling is that it should be one of the rules. It doesn't matter about the size, it matters about the engagement.
Yeah, I mentioned I wrote this book on community, and Mac Redden, who's quite an established person in that field, gave a quote for the book that says the cardinal sin of community is chasing number of members.
Right.
And it's so true. Everyone goes for volume. And actually, it's so eye-opening when you do the opposite, when you go for quality over quantity. It's just a totally different game.
Yeah, I'm really excited personally at the moment because we've just hit 127,000 members on HelpBnk. And when we send an email out, it's a 97% open rate. Whew. So there's like, that's what, that's what you want, right?
That's like 1999.
But that's what I mean. It's like, it matters that the community who have got involved care about the mission.
Yeah.
And so I that's the measure I care about. I mean, the membership is a good number, but the actual engagement is, again, what matters. You mentioned something there about hustle culture. I just want to go back to that for a second. I'm actually a fan of Alex Hormozy. I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But he actually did a post recently, and the post, I'm going to butcher it a bit, and he might get in the comments and get upset with me if I butcher it. But the basic gist of it was, those that slag off hustle culture are often broke, basically.
Yeah.
And, it is interesting, this hustle culture. And I find myself confused about it too. You mentioned it there, how you're anti-hustle culture. What is your philosophy when it comes to like a working day? How do you think about, because you own your own company, you've got a lot of pressure, bills to pay, staff and so on. How do you balance hustle culture, having already burnt out once? What's your approach?
So I think Daniel Priestley.
Yes.
As well. I agree with his take on this, actually, that I think a lot of the people speaking out against hustle culture are only where they were because they hustled.
Right.
And so the typical path is you work incredibly hard, which is quite often needed to get to a place of success, which I know is something you debate. We can maybe discuss that. But often that is the path. People work very hard, they get to this pinnacle of success, and then they start saying, you shouldn't work too hard, guys. And there's a certain irony there. So this is a difficult question for me to answer because my path was I became a dangerous workaholic in the sense of just I would kiss my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, goodnight at like 10:30, go to my desk, work until I literally started falling asleep, plug Gary Vee into my ears and play the hustle video that he had back in the day. This was like before he really blew up. screaming at me to hustle, pick myself up by my hair, slap myself in the face, right? This is getting weird now. And I'd keep working until like 4 a.m. And then I'd get barely any sleep. I'd open my eyes and sit on the floor and start working on my laptop within 5 seconds of opening my eyes. All this kind of stuff. And so eventually it led to this path of horrendous burnout, which I nearly didn't come back from. I ended up in hospital. I had major stomach surgery. And then I had chronic health issues for years afterwards. And the whole time I had to keep working to protect the jobs of my team and everything I'd kind of killed myself to build. So would I have got to what I'm doing now without working really hard? No, probably not. I can't say don't work hard at all. But would I advise anyone goes down that path? Absolutely not. It was brutal. I had times where I thought I was going to be that sick for the rest of my life and I'd ruined my life. And maybe I came close to it. So I'm never going to advise that anyone does that. And I think there is probably a sweet spot which recognizes, okay, hard work is probably required for success, particularly early on. Getting something off the ground takes more energy. But actually, you should try and educate yourself about things like working smart, taking risks, which I know something is you're big on. And I think you can't say it's just hard work, because some of the hardest working people in the world are very poor or very unhappy. So that is not the only lever. It's one lever, and it is a pretty good one that you can pull on if you don't have resource or experience or money. But I find the more experienced I get, the smarter I work. And I feel less guilty if I don't just like kill myself working every hour of the day. I'm more intentional with how I work.
Yeah, it's a really complicated subject all on its own, isn't it? It's something I do like us talking about, at least. I mean, I also find myself confused about the subject.
Yeah.
And I think people have to look at themselves, really, I think, ultimately, and say what works for them. I mean, what has worked for me is generally like, if I enjoy what I do, I really enjoy it, like I feel like I've got a purpose, there's an outcome that's meaningful beyond me, then it doesn't feel like work. It's that cheesy line. Now, of course, equally, I've just come from 2 years of total, utter head down process. I've just done it.
Getting it off the ground, right?
Getting HelpBnk off the ground, getting its platform off the ground. 2 years, and it's worked. But I think it's equally true that it is about how smart you work, not how hard you work, and knowing what smart is for you. It changes the game again when you have a kid, in my opinion. Like, that's a whole new different set of rules, right? Because kids, like today, my son doesn't want me doing this podcast. He's like, Daddy, I want you to play with me. I want you to play with me. That's what he's decided this morning should be happening. So I've got to manage that stress. That's an additional layer of, I'm letting my son down. I'm not,
I'll apologise when we go out.
You please apologise. But you've just become a father. You know, right? You know. I think so. These rules that we all apply or try to write down in a book, people have to take them with a pinch of salt, because it comes down to your personality, doesn't it? Ultimately, I have an addictive personality.
Yeah, me too.
So that's why I don't drink alcohol. So I've never done drugs, because I know and work is probably my own addiction. It's an addiction I've allowed myself to have. Right? In my mind, it's a positive addiction as long as I manage it, because at least I'm building something, hopefully, that makes the world a better place, and I'm involved in something that matters, right? But I think you mentioned Gary Vee there. It's interesting because I was also a big Gary Vee fan. I would say I still am, but he changed his messaging completely about a year and a half ago. And he stopped saying hustle. Yeah. He completely dropped it from
his... He got pushback.
Well, he got pushback. And I think he also realised that is a very easy thing to say. Come on, work hard, just do it. What's wrong with you? Go. Yeah. And it sounds cool on social media. Like, people are like, he's right. Yeah. I'm lazy. And so there's something about that that's a good hook. That will get you views. But it's toxic because it needs context.
It lacks nuance.
It lacks, and I think that's true with all advice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now I think we should create a community called Nuance.
I think it's lacking, because people, you're totally right, they spout attention-grabbing headlines for obvious reasons, but everyone's an individual, and what works for someone might not work for someone else, and but that's not a grabbing message, is it?
So how do you do it now? How do you manage your day? How do you not get to a burnout stage? I do see you struggle a little bit with this still today. When I see some of your posts on social media, I'm a big fan of yours, as you know. That's why I've invited you today. Mate. And I consider you a friend, actually. I see some of your posts, and sometimes it's like, I don't want to post today. I just don't feel like it. That kind of honest message. So how do you manage your day? How do you make sure you keep control?
Yeah, I mean, it has totally changed since having a kid. I've got the most amazing 18-month-old daughter now.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And what I did prior to having her, you know, working on my personal brand and my side hustles and social media, kind of for the fun of it, I would go home when I was building my Instagram and do like 3-4 hours on social media relentlessly. I used to get 100 to 200 DMs personally a day and respond to everyone with voice notes and so on. And there's no way I'm going to do that instead of spending time with my daughter and my wife now, to be honest. She had enough years of being very patient with that. So I'm just prioritizing family. And I think why I feel okay about it broadly is because I know the reality of how that plays out. And so if I'm saying, well, I'm filling that bucket, I'm focused on family, I'm doing way, way, way less on social media, and subsequently I'm not growing my social media right now. But I'm not getting frustrated by that. I'm not saying like, why am I not growing? I know exactly why I'm not growing, because it's not my focus right now. So to answer your question, I'm focused on family and our home. I'm massively focused on my business and my main working hours. But like you, I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I'm not very good at doing nothing. So when it comes to the evening time, there's only so many evenings I can sit there and watch Netflix before I kind of get a bit itchy and I'm like, what next? And this is why, you know, for the last 5-10 years, every time I have some free time, it gets swallowed up with a new podcast or a new venture or a new idea. And that's what all the community stuff I'm doing is right now. That started as like in my spare time, I started learning community even more deeply and talking about it a bit. And obviously I couldn't just leave it at that. So it's like, so I wrote a book. I launched a membership community for community builders. I put out a ton of content around community. I connected with all the thought leaders in the space. I started being interviewed about community. I consult on community because I can't just sit on this and be like, oh, that's fun. Like I'll just dabble. It's like, I have to double down and do something just because I find this stuff fun. Like birthing an idea, starting from nothing and just seeing where you can take it and who you can help. It's the most fun feeling in the world. So I'm sure you're like this. I actually need to rein myself back. And I've got, you know, an incredible partner in my wife that sees me getting a little bit manic sometimes and is like, calm down, take a rest, please don't fall over. And she helps me kind of manage that tendency.
How do you define success for yourself now then, based on that kind of present? And by the way, before we jump into that, just quickly say for people listening, I think there are stages in life as well. Like when I was 15 till about 30, I did just work. Yeah. And I didn't have anybody. I didn't have a girlfriend really. Well, I'd say that. I actually met my wife at 26, but, you know, like she worked with me, interestingly. But I feel like stages in life are also pretty important to recognize, aren't they? Another nuance. Like maybe people listening, maybe just analyze their stage. Like my son's now coming up to 7. I can't get those 7 years back. He'll never be 6 again. He'll never be 5 again. And he'll never be 4 again. So if you can, spend time with them when you can. And someone said to me the other day, I've got 4 more years before he won't want to spend any more time with me. So part of me is like, I need to spend time with him, you know. But it is, you know, that I just throw that nuance on there in there. But I think for you know, if you look at your kind of future projection of what you want to do, how do you define success for yourself now?
It's changed. You're right. You know, I used to be much more in alignment with some of these influencers who ultimately are preaching quite like a capitalistic mindset. More, you got to grow all the time. And I just feel a bit fatigued with that. So we've got really, really big visions for my company. And I've got personal visions for my personal brand stuff and my side hustle. But I'm very much in the kind of marathon, not a sprint mindset now. And I'm just intentionally enjoying it now more. I'm trying to enjoy my day to day, you know, work with incredible people, serve incredible communities, build something of meaning that aligns with my values, spend time with family, invest back into our home and our day-to-day environment. And I feel less frenetic as a result. And I think our team at my main company, Design Cuts, feel much more aligned as a result. You know, we're all here building this thing that we care about. And I don't care if it takes 10 or 20 years to get there. Good. Rather than 2, and we all burn out. Like
someone said to me a little while ago, and I love this line. It's like, you know what you're doing? Take time out of the equation.
Yeah.
Stop making, in 5 years' time, I'm a millionaire, whatever that bullshit that people say, right? Take time out of the equation.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the time. Like that whole cheesy line, you know, enjoy your journey. Yeah. You know, that kind of it's the journey that actually is the enjoyable bit, not the arrival, right?
It is, and we've made some really like small but key decisions to help with that. So one decision we made at the start of the year was we generally work with amazing people at my company. We always have, but occasionally you'll get someone who is not in alignment with your values, or they're a bit difficult or challenging or whatever. And it's like the 80-20 rule. They suck all of the time and focus from your team and what you're doing and your happiness. So I said, right, no more. We're doing this rule now where we only work with unbelievably nice people who are incredibly easy to work with. And as a result, we
said... Great
criteria
criteria on a CV. That
right?
Is,
so, and our team are, they're all nice and lovely and amazing. But any partnerships we do now, anything like that, any vendors we work with, we've said no to some opportunities because it's like, you know what, this is going to be hard work. We can't be bothered. Like, that's going to be a difficult process. And by doing that, suddenly we're enjoying our day-to-day more than ever. And so there's been a few little tweaks like that where it's like everyone's just happier.
Good lesson. I think someone said to me a little while ago, they said, "Oh, Simon, you're a personal brand expert. What should I do to build a personal brand?" And I said to them, "I'm not a personal brand expert. In fact, about 3 years ago, I spoke to a guy called Tom, and I asked him about what I should do with my personal brand. You said to me something that stuck with me.
Oh, I can't remember this.
You said to me, Simon, what you want to figure out is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And, this is the interesting thing about people who think people are gurus or something, like everybody who's pretty much posting up some motivation quote today has got it from Socrates. Like everything brilliant's already been said by Greek mythology or whatever, there's probably no original post. They just retranslated it. But that stuck with me, that point. And so do you think that is a good way of defining personal brand? Is there any update on that? What's your feeling about personal brand?
Yeah, I touched on earlier, I think it's increasingly about shining a light on an idea that you want to challenge or champion or something like that. I think
around personal brand, it's also about an idea as opposed, because for example, people would say, that guy's a brilliant TV producer, or that guy knows what he's doing on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's been the past really, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. So are you saying that you think the future will be someone will say, well, Elon Musk is getting people to Mars because if we don't, the human race is wiped out. Like he's got his visions, that being one of them. And I think that's what people really buy into rather than my name's Elon and I'm great kind of thing. Right.
And you can see endless permutations of this. You have a very clear mission with HelpBnk, and I think that's what you're getting people to buy into. You just happen to be the front man of that. My friend Marissa she's very prolific on LinkedIn, and she runs the Authentic Asian, which is about helping Asian American women to, have more equity essentially, and champion for them. She's not saying, hey, I'm amazing, everyone look at me. That's my personal brand. She's saying, this is what I believe in, and she's championing people around that. And I think increasingly, and this really fits with our chat about community, the world does not need more kind of siloed off ego maniacs. It needs more visionaries, and it needs more facilitators. And so much about community is facilitation. It's how do you organize people and bring them together around an idea, and how do you facilitate connections between them, and how do you mobilize them, and all this kind of stuff. And you need to kind of be a great leader to do some of that stuff. But it's not about put the spotlight on me, everyone revere me and look at me. It's, come on, guys, this is a great idea. Who's interested? Who's in? Let's make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to what we were saying earlier, community is not a new thing. I mean, probably... And I'm not religious, so I say this carefully. I'm sure the number one was probably Jesus and the whole idea of and let's build churches and everyone gather and let's all have one philosophy. These 10 commandments, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's probably one of the oldest communities that's really proven to over time become one of the largest landowners.
That's
in the
done
world.
well, hasn't it?
That's done quite well. That community, yeah. It's also caused a lot of division, and that's something just for a second touch on. I like to keep things positive, but I also like people to see the holes they can fall into when they create community. Because community, I mean, we're both probably saying the same. It's a good thing. It's the future. It's also been the past, and it will power up a business. No doubt about it. Mm-hmm. And I actually would go as far as to say, and you can disagree with me if you think, I don't think businesses will survive in the next 10, 15 years if they don't have a community. And I would argue that BlackBerry's biggest mistake was that they didn't have a community. Apple built the App Store. That was a sense of community. Yeah. BlackBerry didn't have that. right? There's other technical reasons why BlackBerry lost, but big part of it was community. They didn't have a central place where people all gathered and created and did things, right? And so, do you think that's true? Without a community in the future, most businesses will fail?
I think it's increasingly important, and I think particularly if you're in an industry where what you do is quite commoditized, then it can be a massive differentiator. So if everyone's selling widgets, what makes your widgets different? And I would say community is definitely one facet, brand is massive as well. And all these things can kind of be tied together in some way or other. But I'll offer a kind of slightly contrarian pushback. I think I almost at points have gone too hard on community and thought that's enough. And actually, you need really good product market fit if you're a business. You have to have something that people want. And I think a lot of people hear about community, get excited and think, oh, I can rest my whole business on that. It's like, you can't. You need a solid business model. And then community is baking in loyalty, retention. It's adding fuel to the fire. But it's not enough in and of itself unless the business is the community or the community is the business.
I love that nuance. It's quite an important piece you're talking about there, yeah. Because I'll caveat with, I was going to say I love the Kardashians, which would be a clip that would go viral, I'm sure. I'm a big fan. No, I think that they were misunderstood in their early years, but they were actually building a community in their own way, right? People that aspired and hoped and looked to have a better life, and they've proven that they can sell product. And you look at these big makeup brands that struggle to sell. They try to do advertising campaigns, sponsor the Super Bowl, whatever it is, to try and get sales. Whereas an influencer just says, I'm using this and it's amazing, and 100 million items sold, the next day, sort of idea. And I think that's why I think people are calling, like, I describe myself as an influencer now, almost as an insult. I can see it. People are like, oh, just an influencer. I don't say that I've invested in a lot of businesses. I'm an angel investor that's done pretty well. I don't talk about the big companies I've built and I've sold anymore. I don't really mention those things. I actually like to insult myself because that's what people look at me and they go, you're just an influencer. Oh, God, one of those, huh? One of those guys that talks a lot on social media. But it's really fascinating because I think people are totally underpricing what that actually means in the future. Because if you link it to community and market fit, that's it. I think if you get that triangle of a brand that people trust, that stands for something, has a purpose, alongside a product, and it doesn't have to be a product, but a thing that people can connect and buy. Subscription, for example, on Instagram, or people can subscribe on TikTok now. It doesn't have to be a physical product that people buy, but people buy in. And I think that's so powerful too. The nuance of that is so important for people to not miss, though. I don't want people to miss it.
I think there's a real spectrum. So what is the worst form of influencer? I would say it's some of the people I've seen who might have come out of Love Island. Not hating on all of them, but I've seen some who clearly they're not from a well-off background. I can understand some of the financial motivation, but they get an agent who then says every post you're going to be plugging a product. Yeah. So they come out the show, look at my new watch, sponsored by this, sponsored by that. There's no engagement.
They don't sell things they believe in.
Exactly.
And they'll sell things that aren't necessarily good for the world.
Here's my weight loss powder or whatever, right? And you see it and you just cringe. And they've got no community behind what they're doing. It's clearly for very selfish motivations. On the flip side, you get people you could refer to as an influencer who are doing tremendous good with that. And, they have a mission. They have, fans that they mobilize and turn into a community. They give back to those people. They connect with those people. They facilitate connections around those people. I spoke recently with one of Trini London's team. And I think what they're doing at that company is tremendous, right? And their community is so engaged. And they bring them together and they meet Trini and they meet the team. And that's a totally polar opposite influencer experience to like, here's John off Love Island trying to flog you a product that's terrible.
I want to open this suitcase in a minute and get your opinion on.
I'm so intrigued.
On what
is it going to be like an Ellen thing where something jumps out?
Maybe. I have actually already opened it, so I know what's inside. But I want you to, when you open it up, tell us what you think it is. Right. And then we're going to try and help this entrepreneur. In fact, we're going to try and call them because they've got their number on here. We're going to blur this out in the podcast. Yeah. And we're going to call them and see if we can help them. But before we do that, I just want to stay just for 1 second on the detail of community. Yeah. So you just mentioned something there about because I know community now because you've helped me understand it, but I don't want the audience to miss it. It was a bit of a process of a community member. Mm-hmm. So you just mentioned there, maybe like for example, you might do a post and you have following. But of course, following is not community. You can have a following, but they're not necessarily. They've accidentally followed you, or they liked one thing. I did a video recently about some kids. they will come up to me and ask me for money. And I said, I'll give you money if you stop vaping.
I saw that, yeah.
And it got 16 million views on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't even checked on the other channels, but it's lots of views. And I got a lot of extra followers for it. Now, those followers might be following me because they think I'm an anti-vapor or something. You know, like, they're not necessarily the people that are going to be like, okay, I want to improve myself. I want to start a business. I want to know how that works. They might not necessarily be this whole, what I'm talking about, help people model, right?
Yep.
They just agree with me that people shouldn't be vaping. Right?
Yeah.
So talk us about those steps. Is what you've discovered, you know, building communities and all the people you've helped. Like, what are the steps for people if they're listening? They have no money, and they want to build a community. What do you think the steps are?
Okay, there's a kind of two-part answer here. So first, it is back to that notion of what is community. And I used to be a lot more black and white about this. Right? It was a following is not a community at all, because a community has to be a forum or a place where people can talk to each other. And actually, I think increasingly community is spread across multiple touch points, and that's happening more and more and more. So you and I saw this with Clubhouse, etc. But when COVID hit, there was a lot of connection or yearning for connection that had to go entirely online. And there was this huge spike online. And so it's kind of like energy, right? It can't be created or destroyed, it just transfers. There's this constant human energy for we want to connect, where's this going to happen? COVID kind of settled down, and so now it's like, well, that's happening more in person, so a bit less online. And then online, it's no longer happening just in message boards because social media started. And so if you look at how brands do this, and we mentioned Gymshark before, it's not that you are only in the community if you go to a meetup. It's not kind of arbitrary, right? You don't go from not being a community member to suddenly the second your foot walks in the door, suddenly being part of the community. It's spread. So it might be that you're in the comments section interacting with other Gymshark buyers on social media. And then you go to a pop-up, and then you go to an event, and then you go to their Regent Street store, and then you go to like a virtual thing that they do. And it's all community. It all kind of forms it. It's just what level of engagement and activation do you have in that? Maybe it's light touch and you've just interacted in one of these spheres once, or maybe you're a super user and you're deeply embedded in the brand. It's all community, just to varying extents.
Yep.
I think that's a kind of important distinction.
Good point.
In terms of how to start, I think a lot of it comes down to like the business fundamentals. And this is what I love about my kind of weird, varied background. I try and have this triangle of like community, design and brand, and business and marketing. And I think they all feed each other. So often when people are saying, you know, how do I do a community? It comes back to those fundamentals of business. What is your offering? Who's your ideal persona? So what is your dream member? Who are you trying to get in front of? And try and come up with this value proposition of my community helps X people do Y, solve Y, or whatever it might be. Okay, so they need to get clear on what is this thing even about. Once they've done that, they need to try and validate it. So it's what people often do is they say, oh, community is the hot new thing. I'm going to go, you know, find the fanciest software for them and pay a load of money for it and spend weeks and months setting it up and adding tons of content and resources. And then I'm going to go and try and find some members for it and hope they like it. And it kind of fails. Or they chuck people in there and are very hands-off and there's no engagement, and they say, oh, it's a lie, community's broken. What I did with my community is I had a following at this point, and I said, I'm only going to start this if I can get 100 founding members to prove the concept. So I put out some posts and said, I'm thinking of doing a community for community builders. Here's a wait list, who's in? And I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people apply just from that first push. So I went, fantastic, I've got my first people, and I whittled it down and I found my 100 founding members. Only then did I go, oh crap, I need to actually go build this thing. So I went and found the platform and learned it all and set it up in like 2-3 days. And then I let those 100 people in. And doing it that way round is so much better. And you know, that totally applies to any business. I believe in validating a concept first. I believe in getting your offering clear, getting your persona clear. You need those fundamentals down, because otherwise you just get swept up in the hype of community. You do it the wrong way round and then it breaks.
What I also like about that example is, and Daniel Priestley also talked about this recently, waitlist, right? Concept of having a waitlist. I really like that model of like, you know, these days you don't need to go and build a product, put it out there and see if people buy. I mean, that's what Henry Ford had to go build a factory, get the patent. He didn't have the patent for the car. Get the patent somehow released. and then make the car and then put it out there to see if people would buy it. But this day and age, thanks to digital, people can pre-buy, people can pre-register. You can see, if there's a demand for the very thing that you are about to put out there in the world before you spend any money.
And I'll give you a tactic actually on this. So I'm sure you're familiar with MVPs for everyone listening.
For those MVP,
minimum viable products. So what's like the cheapest, quickest, easiest thing I can get to market to test demand? It doesn't have to be fully fleshed out. It's like a prototype or a pilot if you were doing a TV show, right? And Rosie Sherry, who's someone I really respect in the community world, she coined this phrase MVCs, minimum viable communities.
Oh, I've not heard that. I love that.
Yeah, right. And it's really genius, but essentially it's a similar concept. What form of this community that's not fully featured can you get out to see if people want it? So I had a call with a young guy the other day, and he was really struggling. He was in the weeds. He wasn't clear. And we kind of helped him refine down to his ideal persona and value offering. And he was already getting bogged down trying to build this huge complex platform, not knowing if he could fill it. So I was like, well, what if you just got 10 people who fit this persona, and you see if you can get them to sign up for a weekly kind of group coaching call where you help them, they all help each other, and you facilitate that. Do that first, and then if they're loving it and they want to continue the conversation, then you can weave in like a forum and stuff later, and then you can scale it. But if you can't get 10 people and bring them together around this concept and get them to pay you, this thing might not have legs. You might need to refine it. So focus on your MVC.
I love that. Just technically, before we get to the suitcase, you mentioned their platforms. Mm-hmm. This is something I actually struggled with when I was trying to bring my community somewhere. The community, my community actually really started in my comments. Mm-hmm. That's what, like, to your point earlier, that people were dumping in the comments, I want to help, I want to be involved, I can do this, I can give a coffee machine away, I'll give free office space, all these things. I'm like, I need somewhere for this all to go, and I really struggled with it. That's why I ended up having to build my own platform in the end, because I needed somewhere. But what platform-wise, maybe quickly talk through what you know there?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. People are like, which platform should I use? And again, it can't be one size fits all. I can't be like, every person should use this platform, because if that was the case, you wouldn't have a spectrum of platforms for people to choose from. So I think there's a few considerations when it comes to this. What's your budget? First of all, maybe you've got zero budget, in which case you can't afford a premium platform, although they are getting increasingly affordable. Do you want it to be synchronous or asynchronous? So what I mean by this is synchronous is real time, something like a Discord server, everyone's in there chatting away, or asynchronous is something more like a traditional forum or message board, right? Someone posts, I need help, and they come back the next day and 3 people have responded, but they're not chatting in real time. So again, that's quite a big distinction. What scale are you looking to do? Because if you're only looking to get like 10 high ticket people in, maybe you don't need that kind of platform at all, and you just do like a in real life mastermind or a Zoom mastermind or something like that. Because if you put 10 people into an asynchronous forum, it's going to be a ghost town, right? There's not going to be enough critical mass for this to work. So I think people need to consider all of these different factors when they're looking at platforms. And another key one actually is, where do people already like spending their time? And this is a tricky one, right? This is one of the biggest points of friction you get starting a community. There's an inherent friction of trying to get people to spend time somewhere that is not native to them. And I'm sure you might have seen this with HelpBnk a bit, right?
Definitely.
They're all spending time on social media. So forcing them to go use a new platform they're not familiar with, that isn't what they open when they wake up, really difficult.
Really difficult.
So honestly, I don't know if there's a perfect way to overcome this, but I would say one solution is spreading your community. So yes, it's in your own platform, but also extends to social media. So you're kind of hitting people and meeting them where they're at. You also need to ensure that it is compelling enough that they want to be there. And you also need to try and activate them and build a habit. So it's not about someone dropping in once and suddenly that's going to be part of their behavior. But if they drop in, they get tremendous value. You activate them, which means them doing something. They might post, they might attend an event on that platform, etc. And then you get them to do it over and over and over again. They get more and more tied into the platform, because suddenly you say, well, I am willing to go to that forum if every time I go there, I get to hang out with friends, or I get this private, safe environment where I can open up in ways I can't on social, or I get some unique value proposition that I can't get on social. But it is really, really difficult. And for everyone kind of watching, like, community's hard. This is where so many people fall down. They hear it's, an interesting thing. They listen to a podcast like this and go, yeah, my business should have a community. So they chuck up a platform, they funnel some of their audience and users in there, and then they don't have infrastructure, they don't have a community team, they don't really care about it enough, and they just kind of let those people sit there and hope they're going to sort themselves out. They don't manage them, they don't facilitate them, they don't invest ongoing resource in it, and then invariably it fails, and they blame community and say, well, that's not right for us after all, rather than the fact they did a terrible job. I see this all the time.
So true. I think, again, if people are listening to this, they want to build a community, it's like anything, you do have to invest in it. At first, you can start it all very low cost.
Yeah.
But, that's why I think, I really believe in for-profit businesses that do good. Because I know a lot of charities, I've advised a lot of charities in the past, they don't have any money to invest in new things like this. Mm-hmm. So they don't, but they're missing out on an opportunity to help a lot of people at the same time. But it's because actually to do it right, you do need to invest in it. And therefore you need a financial model perhaps around it. But I think those things are really tough to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that pricing, let's just talk about pricing for communities and membership fees. And how do you think that is balanced? How do you balance it with what you do?
Balance how? In terms of
what
how
is the right amount to charge?
Yeah.
Why charge that amount? How to ensure value? Is it limiting expectations? Is it how's the best practice around it?
Yeah. Okay, there's a lot here. I just got done completing a 9-hour course on community, and pricing was one of the biggest modules. There's so much to unpack. So I'll try and give some of the headlines. Again, you can't give a one-size-fits-all thing. People say, how much should I charge? Like I'm going to say the same answer to every person. It varies, right? So there's things like market rate, which applies to every business, including communities. So what is the low and high end of what your persona in your market is willing to pay? And where do you want to sit within that? How much credibility do you have? So do you have tons of credibility and audience and you can drive demand, in which case you can probably justify charging a little bit more? What's the scale of it? And what do you expect and want to earn? Because there's a big difference between, well, I have a mission to run, a super massive community with loads and loads of people, and I don't have that many financial pressures. I'm doing it for the love of it, and I'm going to charge a bit less and reach as many people as possible, versus I want to deeply help a group of 12 people, and it's going to be more high ticket, and I want to fall on the higher side of the pricing range in my market because of my credibility and experience, and I want to attract committed people, for example. So there's a huge range. There's also nuance, like if you're doing a membership community, monthly tiers often are quite problematic for a few reasons. People kind of treat them almost like a free trial. So I'm going to dip a toe, but then they lead to the highest churn, the lowest committed people, and so on. And you also deal with a lot more admin because suddenly that person has 12 decisions a year to make, thinking, do I want to stay in this community? You lead to things like cards failing or transaction issues and just the headache of that. So recently with my community, I shifted to only offering quarterly and annual. And immediately I saw we already had pretty healthy churn, to be honest, but the churn improved. And then I started looking and thinking, the people seem different. They seem less, I'm going to try this out, and more like I'm in, and they're more engaged, they're more committed. So I genuinely, I do this for the love of it. I also do it for revenue. I want to support my family. But it's so true what people say that, when people commit more, they're more committed. That's just a fact. And it often feels like an excuse for marketers to charge ridiculous amounts. I don't, I'm very affordable. But, if you charge $1, then you are not going to attract the same person as if you charge $50 a month or $100 a month, for example. So yeah, just some considerations for people around pricing. I would also say, just on the business side, definitely take the time to project. This is where people fall down. I say, what do you want to earn? And they go, I want to make $100,000 a year. And then I'm like, okay, do you know how you're going to get there? How many members are you going to need? And they're like, I'm not sure. It's like, okay, how long is it going to take you? I'm not sure. Where are you going to attract those members? I'm not sure. So actually mapping this out. And people often don't think about the compounding impact of churn. This applies to like SaaS businesses and membership communities. But the bigger you get, maintaining the same churn rate hurts you more and more. Because if you churn at 10% with 10 members, you're losing one person. If you churn at 10% with 1,000 members, you're losing 100 members every single month, and you're having to replace with 100 new members just to maintain, right? You're not even going to grow at that point. You need 100 new members in the door, and that's a load of work and cost and so on. And not only that, but my friend Jay Klaus put this really beautifully. He's like, it's not just that you're replacing 100 members, but when those 100 members leave, with them goes their knowledge, their context, the relationships they form. So actually you're at a net negative because you've really lost something when those people have left. So again, it's really important to kind of focus on things like a healthy churn rate, trying to retain people. And there's a ton of different ways to do that.
It's a deep subject. This subject.
It like is, yeah, we're going quite...
You just done a nine-month module or whatever. No, but I know how deep it can go.
Yeah.
If people want to know more than what they've got in this podcast, where can they go to get that information?
So I put together a free book, actually, which is at communitymanual.com. That was really fun. I got carried away. I actually reread it this morning for the first time in like 2 years. And I was like, oh, actually, there's quite a lot here. So I hope people enjoy that. I
remember when you were working on that, by the way.
It was like, fun.
3 months, leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm going underground.
Yeah,
that was really fun. Who knows, I might do an updated edition, in which case I would love to include you. But yeah, that's got about 30 case studies because, again, I learn best when people show me how they've done it,
right,
rather than like a general theory. Yeah, it's like, show me an example, and then I can kind of think, well, how could I apply that myself?
Well, we'll put the links in the podcast down below to that, so you can grab that resource. I also recommend people follow you, so we'll put your links down below as well for that.
Thank you.
I think you actually provide a really honest, authentic, and insightful posts when you do it. You know, and you should do it when it suits you to do it. I think that's actually, your personal brand. I think it's actually quite.
I'm consistent with the newsletter,
and I think frankly, you're consistent generally. I think it's a really interesting thing. I actually really like because I'm posting twice a day on my social medias, right? But I've got a team of 11 people helping me do it. So like people see it and they're like, "How are you doing it?" I'm like, I've invested in bringing some brilliant people on, and it's
these
expensive.
Amazing people back
Exactly, and it's not, it's no. I think that's what people see. Maybe when they see these influencers that are doing really well, I didn't start that way. So people listening, don't get intimidated, and don't think you need to do 2 posts a day on every platform and define success for yourself anyway. Maybe it's not. What I've noticed with social media, because I do think social media and community are becoming a bit blended now. There's an interesting merge, and you mentioned it already, but there's an interesting merge where I think a lot of my community are split, right? I have a community on Telegram. Yep. I have a community on Discord. Mm-hmm. I have a community on Instagram. I have a community on TikTok. Some of them cross over, but actually the audience can sometimes be, comment-wise, they're not going on TikTok. They only like Instagram.
Yeah.
They only go on TikTok. They hate Instagram. Mm-hmm. When I go live, the audience can be different to the people that are watching the video, generally speaking. Yeah. So the audience, I know the profile, generally speaking, of who these people are, but I'm saying that, and you said it earlier, I think just practical example is I've also got my own portal. Yeah. Right. But that portal is designed to do one thing. You need help, you go there to get help, and there will be people there to help you. Yeah. But that's not, some people need a conversation, or they need to understand what question they should ask, right? So
can I just speak to this for a second?
Sure, please.
We've got time. Yeah. So I talk about this as the engagement ladder, and you're spot on because any community, it's a group of people and it's an ecosystem, and people are different. So typically you might get 90% of people who are passive, which means they are there, they're watching, but they're not engaging or participating. You then get 10% active and maybe 1% like power users, for lack of a better phrase. You should be trying to serve all of them, because if you serve only one of them, you're going to neglect the others. So how do you do this? Is exactly what you're doing. You provide a varied experience. So it might be that some people want to come to an in real life meetup and meet you and hang out and do that. It might be other people enjoy joining a live session like we've done today. It might be other people enjoy listening to a podcast like we're recording right now in their own time. Other people might want to go and get help in something like your message board at HelpBnk. Other people might want to just observe that happening and learn from the interactions of others, but not participate. So by having this ecosystem and intentionally offering something for all of them, you're going to help more people. You just have to be intentional.
Yeah, I think that's such a good insight. And I'm going to add something to what you just said for people to maybe take home and think about this. You're consistent in your newsletter because I think you enjoy it. Yeah. And it's something that doesn't require going on camera, and it's something you can just do because you enjoy it. Download your thoughts onto paper and you create a newsletter. I actually think people should think about community, not just what your community wants, right? But also what suits you. So I'll give you an example. Every day, people tell me in my comments, check your DMs on Instagram. Every day.
Yeah.
I spend so much time replying to them saying, thank you for your, I don't read DMs.
I see this,
But, let me know in the comments, how can I help you? Or go on HelpBnk and ask a question.
Yep.
I don't want to go into the DMs. Actually, going into my DMs really stresses me out.
Yeah, you'd be miserable.
And it's not, I'm not trying to pretend I'm special. People get this all the time. I've got thousands of messages in there every week. And I just cannot get back to everybody and feel satisfied. I want to clear that inbox.
Yep.
I'll never be able to do it.
Sure.
Right? So I actually, but my community want it. So here's the almost like the contradiction to, serve your community. You also have to serve yourself a bit and say, look, community, and this is probably advice for anyone who wants help. People are saying, help me, help me, help me. And they're not looking at how the people that they're asking for help actually like to help. Yeah. They'll say, I'm in your DMs. I've sent you 3 DMs and you haven't replied. Well, you want help from me, so why don't you learn how I give help? Right? Yep. And it isn't in the DMs. And it's now become like a thing for me where actually it'd probably be easier if I just went and replied in the DMs, because people get really annoyed. You haven't checked your DMs, but I kind of want to highlight this lesson from my own pain, do it the way it suits you.
I've got a tip if you don't mind for this.
Please.
So I'm a big believer in being very public and front and center with your values. How you kind of want members to interact with each other and also how you might want to act. So why don't you put up a 1-page thing with a really vulnerable, honest video being like, look, I want to help all of you and I'm really doing my best and the team are doing their best. Here's why I can't respond to DMs, but it doesn't mean I don't care. Here's all the links below for where you can get this help. And by the way, here's the values we believe in as a community, supporting each other. So it's like a manifesto, but it's also giving context, so you don't have to keep explaining yourself over and over and over again. You give it a snappy domain that forwards to that page, like simonhelp.com or whatever. And now whenever you get people saying that and being like, why aren't you reading the DM? You're like, go to simonhelp.com and I explain everything in a more in-depth way than what I can do in this exchange. So it just becomes a reference point for people. That's a great idea.
I'm going to update simonscrib.com with that straight away.
Yeah.
And let me just quickly do it now. Let me know. Which camera am I? Got this one, right? I've now got 4.3 million people following me online. And it's time to give you an update for those that don't actually know how I can help you and what I'm here to do. Ultimately, I want to fix the education system. I want to help people who have a dream make that dream happen. And I want to help everybody. But it's not possible to apply to everybody's DMs. It's not possible to help everybody in real time. So this is how I can help you. First, if you have a dream, you can go press any one of the doorbells I've set up in New York City, London, Hong Kong or Auckland. You press that doorbell, you pitch your dream. I will pay for it to be edited and uploaded to my community. You can listen to that video and help the people in that video. You can also go on simonscrib.com and get through to platforms like Discord, where I'm regularly there. I spend 20, 30 minutes there a day. You can go on my Telegram. I do reply to voice clips on there when I've got time. And ultimately, if you can't get through to me, remember, this isn't about me. This is about getting you help from a community. You can go on HelpBnk.com. There's 127,000 people on there the day I recorded this that have pledged to help you in any way they can without any expectation of anything back. You can go on there and get help from people that are far smarter than me there. I'm also on there. Every morning I go on. It's part of my morning routine to answer questions and help people. So hopefully you won't need to go in my DMs and send me a message because I won't be there, but it doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I've got a system to help you. Now I want you to help yourself. And help people is ultimately, if we all do that as a community, a game changer.
That was so perfect. You should do this for a living.
Do you think so?
You're quite good at it.
I might start doing it for a living, yeah.
I honestly, I kept thinking, I hope he mentions that, and then you did. You nailed that off the cuff. And that came off as so genuine, because it is, that if you stick that on a page with all the appropriate links and so on, it's kind of like an FAQ section, right? Its purpose is because you keep, being asked this. I see it in the comments all the time. I think it will get to the point where your own community start responding with whatever snappy link you have for that page before you get there, where they'll be like, Simon's already addressed this 87 times. Go to simonhelp.com or whatever.
Thank you for your advice.
I hope it helps.
And why I'm on the subject, because I haven't really said to you publicly, over the years, you've helped me so many times in so many ways. I haven't really praised you for it or said thank you properly for it.
No, I appreciate
and you just helped me, ironically, without any expectation of anything in return. So just publicly want to say thank you. And you just did it again there. I don't care, whoever's listening to this podcast, all the gurus that they think they're following, if you're listening to podcasts, you probably think that I'm some sort of guru. I'm not. I'm learning from people all the time.
Me too.
And that's what I think people need to realize as well. Like, don't ever pretend you've learned it all. I do know community. I'm still learning from you every day. And for you to come on this podcast and continue to share your knowledge today, I'm also grateful. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, mate. That's very kind.
Let's open up this suitcase and see what this is all about. So as I say, this has been sent to the staircase. This was actually padlocked to the staircase. So okay. We've got a video of it padlocked to the staircase. It's pretty mad. I had to ring the person up. They would only unlock it if I rang the number. So I had to ring them up. This suitcase alone, this briefcase that they put, this is worth £400, just this suitcase. So what we're going to do now is we're going to ring them. As I'm getting the phone ready, I want you to open it up and try to guess what you think it's about before you read anything. So why don't you do that first?
And you've seen it already, have you?
I've seen it,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, pass me my phone, that'd be great. So why don't you take it, open it up.
Can I clear this stuff?
Yeah, that's good.
Is that all right?
We're getting rid of busies. We don't have any adverts on this podcast. We want the content to get straight to you. But if you want to try some of the most amazing sweets in the world, try these. We've partnered with a company called Tasty Mates to bring you passion fruit flavour. And if you buy these sweets, the profit we make will fund dreams. That's the idea. Purposeful sweets that taste bloody good. So give them a try. And I promise you, if you try them, you'll love them. But you can also win £5,000 to fund your dream just by scanning the back of the packet. So buy one packet and scan it 100 times. Good luck. Enjoy the sweets.
Simon, you've done this before. Would you mind opening the initial bit so I don't fumble around?
There we go.
Cool. I didn't know if that was a lock on it.
There we go.
Oh, wow. Pass the parcel.
Kind of, isn't it?
All right.
Now, do we have the code? Oh, no, it's open already. Good. Yeah.
Okay.
Go on, just push left or right. That's it.
Yeah, there we go.
Now I've got you involved in something quite serious, potentially. So what do you think's happening here? What do you think this entrepreneur's on about?
I mean, I'm seeing some suspicious leaves.
Right.
And parcels.
Right.
Now
we need is police sirens.
And bullets,
Bullets, yeah.
It's a stitch up, everyone.
Yeah, stitch up.
I'm
basically...
I don't know if this is the business or if this is just like a quirky PR type angle to get attention.
Right. Well, it feels like it's quite...
feels quite light.
Yeah, light. I don't think that's real narcotics. I think we should maybe just highlight that straight away in case this gets blocked on YouTube.
Could be an incriminating screenshot of me holding that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can we get a thumbnail with you holding that? Yeah,
confused looking
thumbnails.
Yeah.
Don't want any fingerprints. Should have given you gloves. All right, now maybe you can take a bit of paper and see if it gives you a bit more. Have you got to guess what it is?
Okay, all of it, or
yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
So I know what this dream is, but what do you think it is?
Is it around, I don't know, like legal, like edibles or something like that?
Okay. Now maybe read the first bit of the letter that the entrepreneur sent us.
Dear Simon, if you're reading this, then you have successfully received my pitch. My name is Jer Rathur Bell, and I'm reaching out to you with a proposal that I believe aligns with the values and spirit of your mission of helping others achieve their dreams. I'm currently in the process of funding my feature film titled Northern Paradise, set in the city of Manchester during the 1980s and 90s. The narrative revolves around the life of a hardworking individual who by chance encounters an opportunity that promises to liberate him from the daily grind. However, this newfound prospect propels him into a perilous journey, entangling him with a syndicate of gangsters, hustlers, and the relentless forces of law. This promises to be the next cult classic, combining the gritty reality of Lock, Stock by Guy Ritchie and the romance of Goodfellas by Scorsese. You can find out more about the film by scanning the QR codes at the bottom of this letter or by following the links.
All right. So
interesting.
He wants to make a movie. Mm-hmm. And we're going to ring him up now, try to help.
Yep.
And I wonder how we can use the power of community to help him make this dream a reality. So I'll ring him now. Maybe you have a think about that.
I think I have an idea.
Great. Let's see. Now this is where the technology doesn't let us down and we get through. Well, I haven't told him we're calling him either, so he might be...
Call cannot be completed as you...
Do you know what? I might need
Right.
a phone.
We cut this bit.
All right, we cut that bit, yeah. Maybe we'll have to shut the live. Sorry, folks. We have to... Oh, is there a phone there? Oh, yeah. Is that my phone?
Okay.
Yeah, that's my phone as well, yeah. I've actually got 4 phones now. Getting out of control. Actually, I'm going to need to shut the live, I just realised. Because this phone, I can't ring on this one. Oh, okay. You sure? Yeah. Leave it then, leave it live, maybe. I like people to hear what's going to... this stuff.
I forget that's on.
Yeah, that's what happens to me.
Everyone.
We do all that, we do
I
that all
hope
the
it's
time.
helpful.
Luckily, we got nothing to hide, but sometimes we're like, oh, we've probably said something rude. 141, right? Sure? That's what I had to do. I know what it's going to say, I think. It's going to say.
That's a great pitch, by the way.
His pitch?
Yeah.
I know, it's great. Isn't it?
What a legend.
Okay, yeah.
Is it Jer?
Jer, I think.
Hello?
Hello, is that Jer?
Yeah.
Hi, Jer. I'm sitting here with a suitcase full of drugs. Is it possible to chat to you about how much they're worth?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if they were worth anything, well, I don't think I'd need any funding.
I actually have no idea what it would be worth if it was real drugs, and that's probably a good thing. So I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine who is actually a community expert as well as an entrepreneur, and we're just talking about your project. Just before, we want to try and help you basically make it happen. Could you just give us a little sum up, if you've got time, about what you actually need? If you give us specifics about what you need next to try and help make your dream happen. And I say Tom's listening, so we're going to both try and give you some advice if you've got time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so for an independent film, a lot of the ways they get funding is usually through competitions or film festivals, which I'm already entering quite a few. Just been selected for the Manchester Liftoff Festival as well, the script has, which I found out just a couple of days ago.
Well done.
So that's one, thank you. So that's like one way of getting funding for a film. And then another way is sponsorship from different brands that might want to somehow collab with the production. So they either sponsor it with gear or they sponsor it with clothes, or you've seen in films before when there's been clear product placement, things like that. So I was thinking perhaps we could go down that route for a way to fund the film. I'm not saying that like Heineken are gonna want to fund my film or something like that, and I'm a bit like James Bond, the James Bond franchise, or like Forrest Gump and Nike. Like they're just like 2 really good examples of it. But maybe smaller companies on a smaller scale. I've reached out to a few local ones around Manchester where it is based to see if they would like to sponsor in any way. So clothing brands, and there's a lot of pub scenes, so beer, beer and alcohol brands. So I've not yet received any responses from them. I was thinking that would be one way.
Have you funded a movie before, or would this be your first project?
I've made short films before, and I've funded them myself, which is, you can do, like, you don't actually need, money to make a film, to be honest with you. A bit like starting a business, you don't need an awful lot of money to start a business. However, it does help with just, less things for you to think about, sort of thing, or you can get other creative people on board as well that way. So I wanted somewhat of a budget to make it happen, and considering it's feature length as well, it wouldn't be a short, which means it would be like 90 minutes and more. then it would probably require a bit more money. But yeah, I've funded my own short films before. Again, for a shoestring sort of budget, so maybe a couple of grand or something like that of my own money put into them.
How much does this particular concept require?
This film, I'm looking for 100 grand budget.
We're talking pounds, right? Some people might be listening, don't know. Is that not US?
So yeah,
£100,000. Okay. All right, I'm going to pass you over to Tom for a minute, just to maybe, if he's got any questions, also to maybe give you some of his thoughts. So you need the premise of this is you have a great movie idea, you've got the script, and you need £100,000 to make it happen. And I'm assuming there's a financial model for the investor, for example, to get their money back.
Yeah. That's
How
right.
do these things make money?
Usually, if they don't make money on the first film, they usually make money on the second film. But if you get a distribution deal, and it gets distributed either in cinemas or on streaming platforms, and that's where they make their money.
Right, and just because I've been a little bit involved in this, just another question before I hand over to Tom. Do you traditionally this model is you write a script and you sell it to a studio? No, right? That's how these things traditionally get made.
That's right. Yeah, but a lot of studios don't accept like unsolicited scripts, even though
You need an agent, is it?
Yeah.
So why don't you get an agent out of interest?
I thought I would try just do it myself first instead of having to maybe pay someone to do it. I thought perhaps I could go around to a few production companies and streaming platforms to see if they'd be interested. I didn't think they would be as like I said, there's probably a lot of people do the same sort of thing, so they don't often accept.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I know I've just got a publishing deal for a book, and I wanted to do a book for a long time, but an agent approached me, and then I got an agent, and the agent sold it in. If I'd gone to Penguin and asked them to publish my book, they probably would have turned me down. Just something to think about as far as like having an agent is concerned. But anyway, I also like your instinct to try and do it yourself, and I do think the world is moving in that direction where anything can be created. I'm going to pass you over to Tom, see if he's got any questions, but we're just going to try and give you some advice now and see if we can help you move it forward, okay? One sec.
Hi, Jer. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm very impressed by the pitch. I think it was unbelievably creative. Also, I love the idea. Simon doesn't know this about me, but I actually studied film at university, and it's a bucket list dream of mine to direct a film in future. So I love that you're trying to make this happen.
Thanks so much.
I will give a very big caveat to my answer, because I think often people in these situations try and pretend to have all the answers. And I'll be honest, I've never got film funded. I'm not in that industry, so I'll give it my best shot, and I really want to help you, but I don't have all the context or industry experience, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're going the kind of self-funded route, I do think there is potentially an angle for community here, and something I've seen happen multiple times now, because I do kind of follow the film world a little bit online, is that people will put together an MVP. I talked about this today with Simon, minimum viable product, which in this case would be a really short but really compelling trailer.
Right.
And I've seen this happen many times. I'm sure you might have as well. They've only made the trailer, but it catches fire so much with the community, and it reaches the right people, that demand goes through the roof saying, I need this to be a real film. I'm so taken with the trailer. I really want to see this turned into a film. If you could architect something like that, and if the trailer's good enough and your passion and your dream is good enough, why not? Because recently I saw 2 Instagram accounts that say, my dream is owning a Lamborghini, and people started donating just because they thought, well, my 10 quid could, gets tangibly closer to this guy's very materialistic dream. If people are silly enough to fund a Lamborghini for a stranger, hopefully they're willing to get behind a really incredible dream from a talented young up-and-coming filmmaker with a super compelling trailer that clearly they've invested a lot of care into. If you could do that first bit, I would go first, your message, your dream, and your trailer. Second, distribution on that. Because if you don't have a big audience, you need to get eyeballs on this thing. So that's where I would leverage everyone in your network, particularly people like Simon, who might be willing to shine a light on that and get some more eyeballs on that. And if it's good enough and you get enough eyeballs and it starts to get traction, then I would explore potentially something like a Kickstarter or a crowdfund. And I don't know if you've seen many of these. I've seen multiple films actually get funded in this way. But you can have multiple tiers to the crowdfund. Where on the most basic tier, it could just be like your name in the closing credits. But then increasingly, as you go up the tiers, it can be all kinds of stuff. So it could be like you actually appear as an extra in the movie or something like that. I'm not saying it's exactly a masterpiece, but did you ever watch Super Troopers?
I have not, no.
So it's an old school comedy. And when they made the sequel, even though these are like legit, Hollywood filmmakers, they actually did it in a more indie capacity and they crowdfunded it. And what they did was, with each stage of the crowdfund, it let them assign more budget to their film. So they said, if we hit this amount, we are going to be able to include this incredible police car chase scene.
Yeah.
Okay, so what they were doing is saying, well, we're going to make the film regardless if we hit the minimum budget, but the more budget we exceed, the more awesome the film's going to be. And that really motivated people to kind of keep chipping in to try and get it to that next level whilst getting something back for them. They weren't just chucking money at it for no reason. It's because they got some kind of prize. And, I could imagine maybe one of the middle tiers is like people come to a screening before it's publicly released because they helped fund it. So they get there first. And maybe there's some in real life, screening or party that you could showcase perhaps. To tie in with this, are you familiar with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's platform Hit Record?
No.
So if you check it out, it's basically a community platform. It's called Hit Record. Yeah, it's a community platform that he set up where people basically crowdsource talent rather than money. And so someone will jump on and be like, hey, I've got a script. And then someone else in the community is like, cool, I do musical scores and compose music for films. So I'm going to contribute that. And someone else might be an editor. And so they bring together all this talent where everyone's actually doing it unpaid, but just because they want to be part of something like this.
Right. Okay. Hit record. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Sounds pretty cool.
That's all I got, but hopefully some of that might be helpful. I'm going to pass back to Simon because I'm intrigued by his thoughts and yours, to be honest, Jer. I'd love to know what you both think.
Yeah, that sounds like really good advice. I never thought of actually just creating part of the film or a scene of the film for a trailer or something like that. That's I didn't actually think about that. That's a good idea.
Are you your skill set? I mean, you've written the whole script, by the way. I'm just looking through it. Like, you've just really done a lot of work already. Are you a videographer or an editor, or where do your skill sets sit?
Well, I've always made films since I can remember. Starting with like stop frame animation and then moving up to live action, little shorts and skits and short films. I went to uni for a year to do filmmaking. However, after a year, I realised I didn't need to be here to learn how to make films. I just got some experience on an actual set, and I learned more in a week on an actual set than I did in the entire year.
My crew, by the way, here have all studied film and smiling away. They spent years learning and they said the same thing, kind of thing. Yeah, but
yeah. So after a year, I dropped out because I was working in the industry. I was crew. I was an assistant grip, which is someone who.
I've actually heard of that title. I get it. I know what an assistant grip is. That's weird. I know that, but just sorry to interrupt you. What I'm getting to partly is like, what do you not have to do? Say what Tom just said, and like create a trailer.
I think a trailer would be very possible. The only thing I can think of that is probably like most important would be like some actual space, like a garage or a warehouse, something like that. Or
all right, so we can help you find a garage and a warehouse.
Studios are quite expensive to
Yeah, we can help you find a studio or garage.
Yeah.
I'm also going to volunteer my team for a day. We've got, on my team, I've got 2 amazing cameramen and 1 pretty rubbish one, but he can hold a camera. We've got 3 editors, 2 good, 1 really bad. So we've got a crew that can help you, I think, do a trailer. So why don't we we'll give you a day of everyone's time. We'll try to find you an appropriate warehouse. I'm sure I can get a favour from someone. I'm thinking Yazamize or something. You might give us a space. Yeah. So we'll find it. We'll find somewhere to shoot it. I will also pay you £500 to have a part in this. The part I want, and it has to fit with your script, but it would be something like, I ask someone what their dream is doing it, like I'm just doing my normal thing, and then someone punches me in the face or something, or pushes me out the way to get in their getaway car or whatever. They don't have to reply. So I'll pay to have a part. And then I will also use the platform, the Simon Scribb platform, to promote you on.
And everyone's going to want to see Simon getting punched in the face.
Totally.
So that's crazy reach.
If you do Simon punched in the face, when I ask someone what their dream is, a lot of people do want to punch me. So if we actually do it for real, and I'm up for actually getting punched properly, because I'm not a very good actor, so I probably need to be punched. So how about that as next step?
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. We could do that.
All right.
That would help us out massively.
Let's try and do a trailer. I'm quite excited to see what it ends up looking like, and we'll follow Tom's advice. Check out those different platforms. I know Indiegogo is quite good for movie related stuff too.
Yeah.
There's lots of. There's actually another platform. You're going to say something now, Dudley? Are you? There's a platform for movies. They normally go to a festival or something, right? Is that what you were saying earlier to me? What were you saying? You go and play it. Oh, anyway. Yeah, film festival. Yeah. And we've got loads of people that have an opinion on this who are also in the biz. So, look, where are you based?
Manchester.
Manchester. Yeah. So far away. You came all the way from Manchester to leave this suitcase at the doorbell in Twickenham. You are dedicated.
Well, I did it on my work times. I was actually at work, so...
Okay, well, don't...
Yeah, we'll cut.
Yeah, we'll cut that out of the podcast. Good though, mate. Good. All right. Excited. I'm excited to see this this whole thing come to life. And
can I say one final thing?
Of course, Tom. Yeah.
If you start, doing all this with Simon, please document the journey. So don't just do an initial, here's a trailer, everyone, and then go quiet. You want to do behind the scenes. You want to just pump out consistent content, so people can follow the journey, because that's where you don't just hit them once. They get emotionally invested over time across multiple touch points, and they go, oh, hold on, this guy's really committed, and they start to buy in. I'm going to pass you back to Simon.
And that's a really good point. I mean, to add to that, right, we will do a video about this now, right? We'll do a video of grabbing the suitcase from the staircase, and then we'll do a little clip. I'm looking at Dudley because he'll probably be doing it. We'll do a little clip to just tell people. And that what will happen is we'll drive some traffic to your socials. So then you start posting up every day. If I was you, every day I would post up what's happening. The doubts, the fear. Got to go to work. Can't work on it today, but I'll be thinking about it in the van on the way to your job now. Just little things that show behind the scenes of what it's like to get a movie off the ground. That will actually build the beginnings of your community. Tom's got another idea.
Sorry, I can't stop now because
you've got your brain active.
As a little PR thing, could you get a bunch of mates or a bunch of the crew to replicate what you've done here with the briefcase, but go and hand deliver it looking like an agent out the Matrix? So you're wearing like a black suit with sunglasses, and you're doing this like a classic kind of PR box where you deliver it to people who you think might be willing to share, and influencers, and you take it to their office or whatever. But you do all of that at the same time, and you film that as content. So it's like 20 of you meet in a town square looking really crazy, looking like the Matrix, and then you all take your briefcases off around London or whatever and drop them off and film it. Random idea.
I actually did that. I used to work for I won't say the name, a certain delivery company, and I got sacked from there, but I kept the uniform, and I went round different studios in London and big name production companies, and pretty much impersonated a delivery person and delivered them pretty much what I delivered to you. The same sort of thing.
I love that sort of thing. We recently went on the London Underground. We noticed that there was loads of empty ad spaces. No one could afford the ads, or there was no ads in all these spaces on the train. And we basically put up HelpBnk ads on
saw
all the
that.
gaps, and we basically said we didn't want to pay for this ad, so the help on HelpBnk was free. I love this sort of guerrilla marketing you're talking about. I guess like this, the way you're thinking, this is definitely going to happen. And I've noticed something a bit weird since I got verified, and I've got a lot of followers on social media. People reply to me. I'm kind of tempted to ping Guy Ritchie and ask him to help us with this. You never know, right? Who are your favourite directors? Who would you love to kind of give you some mentorship around this?
My favourite directors are the Coen brothers.
They're still called the Coen brothers?
Yeah, I actually, you won't believe this as well, I actually sneaked into the London Film Festival and handed Martin Scorsese my script.
Oh, nice. Have you got a clip of you doing that?
I have pictures of me. He wasn't in his dressing room, but it was his dressing room, and
I love the hustle, man. And this is the
Yeah,
different
me
type
too.
of hustle. This is a different type of one we were talking
great.
about earlier. This hustle I love. This is passion. I think I love it.
I have pictures of it, and I have photoshopped myself a fake path. And
What?
You know what though? The fact that Jer's like telling us all these cool guerrilla marketing things he's done, I've gone from like kind of hoping and believing he's going to do it to feeling 10 times more confident he's going to do it. Because anyone who does that, and that's why sharing this stuff publicly will get more people to buy into you and be like, I believe this guy's going to do it, and therefore I'm going to support him with my time and investment.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is you've got to make sure that no one distorts your vision. So advice you take carefully and ignore what you don't believe in. But I just read your title, Northern Paradise. It's I don't know why it made me think this. This is totally. You want to say Northern shithole. Actually go, like the whole perception. You want to get the attention. The title, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. There's something about it. By the way, I'm not saying my title's the right one, but come up with something.
You just offended half the country.
No, I'm not. But I'm kind of saying it's not a shithole by saying that's what you'll get. Hate drives awareness. By the way, I don't think the North's a shithole, but there's something around being Northern Paradise. It's a bit PC for me. The title's a bit PC, and it could be like Boris Johnson let us down, or the Tories lied. The Northern lie, or
I was trying to be a bit ironic because in the 80s and 90s it pretty much was a bit of a shithole.
I think irony is even a bigger insult. But at least I'm playing on it, and you're
He's gone for an oxymoron.
Yeah, you've actually gone for an oxymoron, exactly. Honestly, man, I love everything about this. I'm excited for you. I think we can do our bit to help you. But yeah, let's do this. Maybe after this, I'll text you the operations person at HelpBnk, and she will be able to coordinate a day when we're all available to record your trailer with you. And if are you do you have a business account for this business, or have you not set it up as a business yet?
No, I'm not set up as a business.
You want to think about just giving yourself a psychological belief that this is happening. Set up a production company, right? Yeah. It's not expensive, but if you commit to a structure, then you're going to believe it's real, and you can start putting all your expenses through it. I kind of want to pay you the money to your company, because I kind of want that will probably pay for your company setup. You get a Tide Bank account. I'm a partner with Tide Banking. You put in the code Simon. When you spend £100, you get £50. So you can and you can pay for company register for free through the Tide account. Right now, I'm sponsored by them. That's why I'm mentioning it. But psychologically, I want you to have a company that is doing this. Otherwise, it's a bit like it's not real enough. Yeah. Whereas if you get a production company today. If you go and have a meal and talk to your wife about it, you expense it as I talked about my production company.
Yeah. Okay.
Tom's nodding. He either wants to say something or he's agreeing with me. Anything to add?
Agreeing.
Yeah. So get a company set up. Use a Tide Bank account because it's free to register a company on there at the moment if you use the code Simon. And then send me an invoice, straight away for £500. So you've got some money in that account. And then this is happening, so you need a production company to put it all through, all right?
I'll do it today.
All right, and then I'm going to send you after this call Chloe's contact information for you to coordinate with her to get a day in the diary for us to do a shoot. Do we have to go up north to do the shoot? Is that a prerequisite to this?
I'm willing to travel. I don't mind.
I'm just thinking what will make it authentic.
Yeah.
We can get into this detail later, I guess. Where is Yazzie? Yes. Where is Enfield? All right. I'm just thinking about a warehouse we can use for the drug deal you want to do, and I think he's in Enfield.
You can film anywhere though, make it look like Manchester.
Yeah, that's true.
Any,
All right.
housing station.
I was going to say something really inappropriate. Yeah, good. All right.
Yeah, we should film in Manchester.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and we could probably get a film grant from Manchester and stuff like that. There's
also
lots of.
now the UK government just changed the tax on a film. They now do 40% tax relief
Right.
up front for a film.
Right.
Any film under £15 million, so this will apply.
Yeah. We have a bit of knowledge
Knowledge,
around this
yeah.
because we are also looking at doing production stuff around What's Your Dream. So anyway, look forward to talking to you more. And well done again for a very creative pitch to the staircase. It's the best staircase pitch I've seen so far, and no offence to the hundreds of people that have already pitched, but I absolutely love it. By the way, did you press the doorbell and do a recording?
I did like several times.
Great, we've got that too. This is more good additional B-roll clips for us. What day was it you went?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday? No, it can't have been yesterday.
Yeah, it was quite a few came through yesterday.
It was yesterday? I thought this was you picked this up yesterday night, then was it?
Yeah, it wasn't there in the morning.
Oh, okay. I didn't realise it was actually yesterday. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Great.
About
Okay.
2 p.m., yeah.
Perfect. Good. We've got that clip then, right?
I'll double check.
Yeah, I think we got the clip, so that's good. Right. This is what is it? What do they say? Action. Let's go.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Action. I don't know what it. Yeah, apparently it's this. This is 4 years of university. I've just been educated. This is it. All right, mate. Lovely to talk to you. Look forward to working with you on this.
Good luck,
All right,
Jack.
awesome. Happy to be part of it and happy that you're behind it. It's going to be great.
See you, buddy.
Appreciate that.
Bye. Making people's dreams real is cool, isn't it?
You got the coolest job.
It is the coolest
that
job.
Makes me happy.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And you get like cool suitcases. All right, I think that's a podcast wrap. Now, another thing we were thinking of doing, is what is your prediction for what's the world going to look like in 10 years' time? Like, going to be all on the blockchain. What's your couple of quick predictions 10 years from now?
Are we still rolling?
To wrap up, yeah.
Yeah. I often go down a rabbit hole when I start listening to stuff about AI, to be honest. I think that is going to be one of the biggest seismic shifts. And my prediction is actually that humans are going to lean back into their humanity more. So I can imagine AI is going to basically take over things around being productive and whatnot, because it can be done so much better. But I think what is going to take off more than ever are, the arts and the humanities. So stuff that you can't really do with AI.
And you enjoy. Things you enjoy. Yeah.
Exactly. Like the weird stuff that we do as sacks of meat, that's what I think will grow. So going to music festivals and comedy clubs and dancing and partying and doing pottery. These things I don't think are going anywhere. And it's the same reason why they invented a self-playing piano, right? But no one watches it, because it's boring. It's just a machine doing it. But we still like to go and watch a human playing piano. So I think there are certain aspects of life that make us innately human. And whilst it's scary what's coming with AI in many ways, could it also be beautiful because we've lost our way and we've become less human over the years? And could this force us back into our humanity?
I love that. I love that future. I hope that is exactly how it plays out.
Me too. Let's be a bunch of hippies sat in a field. I'm happy with that.
Well, I mean, it's also, it links back to my, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today as well, because I think I'm not saying everyone should be an entrepreneur, actually, despite what people think. I'm not saying everyone should be an entrepreneur. I'm saying everyone should have an entrepreneurial mindset, which is basically about having the ability to decide what you do in a day and having hopefully a financial model behind you that allows you to do that thing every day.
Yeah.
So right now it's like, if you don't love that job, quit it and go do something you love. There's a high chance that job is going to get taken away from you anyway. So I don't want the Rust Belt in America.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want people forced into not having a job anymore, not being retrained mindset wise, and then voting for Trump because he's promised to bring back coal.
Right. Yeah.
Fucking insane. Right. So I think it feeds into the narrative that the world you just described, and I see it like, it's cheesy, but if you can go and earn a living from something you enjoy doing all day, brilliant. You'll probably be insular from AI because, AI might be able to do it, but you enjoy it and you can make a living from it.
I'll give you an example. There's a lady in America I connected with on Instagram, and her account, there's an underscore in it somewhere, but she's called Handy Dandy Brandy. And she makes chopping boards. And not boring blocks of wood, but like really arty, handcrafted in her workshop, super creative, beautiful chopping boards. And I love it. Do you think she's worried about AI?
No.
Probably not, right?
Yeah. There's
But
a
she's
story
built
behind
an
the product that
incredible
AI will
business.
never be able to genuinely create.
Exactly. And she
Yeah.
documents her journey every day, her in the workshop. And I think we're going to see more stuff like that emerging. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
And the fact, frankly, a chopping board, that story you've given there is a really good example, because let's face it, there's already a lot of chopping boards out there.
Made in a factory.
Made in a factory.
Mass,
People can buy a chopping board already. So
Yeah.
why is she doing well? She's doing well because she cares about it. She's putting energy into it.
Yep.
That human energy that's very powerful. Transfer of energy into a product is quite a powerful thing that people don't talk about.
Yeah.
And it has a purpose, and we can follow her journey. We're part of her community.
Yep.
I don't even know her, but I can visualize exactly what you're talking
she's
about.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a great way to end the podcast on the concept of free humanity. And often it's just about people freeing their own mind and realizing their own potential. Thank you for helping us do that today.
That was fun. Thanks, man.
You're a star. That was a lot of fun. Want some drugs? Cool. That's a wrap, right? Done. That was awesome. And honestly, man, I just loved everything you said. Let's go for some lunch, shall we?
Cool. Thanks, mate.